I'm moving from MC into moderator, which is, so we're all going to transition with me here together. How's everyone doing? How was lunch? People still with us? Good. Okay. This is going to be fun. So again, Courtney Camps. I head up our customer success team and joined with some awesome panelists who I'm going to have introduce themselves in 1 second here. But we've kind of gone through a little bit of our funnel. You know, we started talking a lot about marketing earlier this morning, kind of some of those people who are engaged or unengaged or wherever they are kind of in that marketing funnel, moved down a little bit, went into our sales panel and talked a little bit about, okay, now we have these engaged people. What are we going to do with them? How do we get them to kind of close a gift or move into that next stage? And now this panel is going to be talking a little bit more about, once you have them as customers, now you've engaged them, you've got them to do something, what do you do next? And so for us at Evertrue, that's our customer success team, which I manage. But this awesome group here, who I'll have introduce, is really thinking about on a daily basis all product folks who are thinking about customer loyalty, that customer experience, and how do we, once we've engaged a customer, get them to come back again and again and again. So we've got that alum in the door. How do we get them to continue giving, coming to events, all that kind of fun stuff? So without further ado, I'm going to have each of you introduce yourselves, tell us who you are, where you went to school, because that's important as well at this conference in particular, and tell us what your role is and just a smidgen about your company as well. So I'll start with Drew, who I have to just plug here though. Drew was our first product person at Evertrue back in the way back day. And so this was actually when we won Mass Challenge and got this giant check that still lives in our office. So this is Drew from very early years. So there you go. There's your warm-up introduction.
All right. Thanks for teeing that up for me. So my name is Drew Burch. I'm a senior product manager at HotelTonight. There I oversee our consumer products across our iOS app, our Android app, and our web products. I am an alumni of Hopkins School in New Haven, of Cornell, and of course of Evertrue.
That's a good one. And tell us what HotelTonight is, just
in
case.
Of course.
Who in the crowd has used HotelTonight? Anyone have that on their app? It's one of my favorite apps. What is it, Drew? What's our pitch?
Well, the pitch is HotelTonight is the best way to get an amazing deal on a really, really incredible hotel at a moment's notice.
So like tonight, right now, I can get a hotel.
That's how we started, but you can also now get a hotel up to 100 days in advance. We're always going to have the best rates on the hotels, where we always beat our competitors. So I definitely encourage you to check it out and download the app.
Cool. We'll get a little bit more on how they get those rates in a second. Lauren?
Hi, I'm Lauren Joseph. I went to University of Pennsylvania, and for high school, I went to Germantown Friends School, also located in Philadelphia. I'm also a senior product manager at Rent the Runway. Do we have any renters in the room?
Any renters?
All right.
Yeah.
So for those of you who aren't familiar with Rent the Runway, we are transforming the way that women get dressed by giving them access to a closet in the cloud that is powered by rental. So women can choose whether they want to rent for work, for a panel, as I'm doing right now.
This is rented, everyone.
For the wedding that they have coming up. And they can choose whether they want to rent for 4 days, like a short-term rental, or whether they want to join one of our subscriptions, which gives them access to a rotating closet of clothes for work weekend and everything in between.
Cool.
And as a product manager, I'm focused on growth and how I can collect data from our users in order to get them to convert faster and come back more often and continue to convert.
Cool. We'll get into that a little bit. And Paul?
Hi, everybody. Paul Costello. I head up strategy at SessionM, just down the road here in Boston. I'm a local guy. Started off at Milton Academy in high school, Dartmouth College for undergrad, and then Babson for my MBA. SessionM, plug SessionM right off the bat, right? So we're a little bit different. We're a marketing platform. We're a loyalty platform. We serve retailers, restaurants, travel and hospitality clients, essentially gathering data from different ingestion points, whether it be point of sale, email service providers, et cetera. We use all that data to create personalized communications, use machine learning to determine what's working, what's most optimal just in terms of customer journeys and whatnot. And then we've got a whole loyalty element as well. So we build out loyalty programs for our clients as needed as well. Oh, you're getting the full suite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even click that. That's
yeah.
Great.
So at our core, we're a customer data platform. So we're ingesting, and then these 3 modules that you're seeing here, you know, we're launching personalized campaigns, offers, and then lastly the loyalty piece. So we cover sort of the full suite, and then we've got reporting on the back end. So
what's one app I might have on my phone that has one of your loyalty programs in it?
Small coffee company out of Seattle.
I probably have never heard of
Yeah.
it before, but could it be Starbucks?
Right. No, yeah. So we're a lot of McDonald's, Nike. We're powering pieces of those apps that give you the most personal communications.
Cool. So first question, I think I wanted to kick over to you all, and whoever wants to grab this first. But tell me a little bit how your company, your organization, or you in your own role are using customer data to start to inform some of the decisions that you're making about the next product you're going to build or the next initiative that you're going to do. What's kind of some of that thought process and what goes into that? I don't know if anyone's got an example. Start off it.
Yeah, I can jump in. So one of the most interesting products that I think we launched in the last couple of years was specifically for our subscribers. So I don't know if you have the slide, but it shows the different programs. But we have a subscription called Unlimited. It gives you access to 4 items at a time, and you can rotate those out as often as you want. And what we built was what we call internally the happiness survey. And every single time that somebody returns an item, they fill out this very quick survey. It asks them, you can see the programs at the bottom here. So both for Update and for Unlimited, every time they return an item, they fill out a survey. They indicate whether they wore an item, how many times they wore it, how it fit, if there were any issues that we need to be made aware of. And what's so cool about it is when we launched it, it was really an indicator for us of whether we were doing right by our customers, whether they were enjoying their experience. But it's turned out to actually be way more because we're now taking that data from our subscribers and we're using it to inform our future buys. So if we see that a certain style is never worn, it's always returning a 0 worn, then we're going to stop buying into that style. Or maybe we notice that a certain designer has really low utilization or really high utilization. And so we'll start to inform future inventory based on that. If for some reason, this doesn't happen often, but if there was a style that the customer had a tear in it or something like that, and she fills that out in the survey, now we can send that information to our warehouse. We can ensure that that style never goes back out until it's repaired or deactivated. And so this data kind of works 360. It helps us improve also what we're showing to that customer when she comes back.
Okay, got it.
So if we notice that she's never wearing a certain style, we're going to stop showing her those types of styles when she comes back to make her shopping experience even easier and faster for her to find what she's looking for.
Cool. That's a good example. Other, want to add to that?
Sure, yeah. So for us, we look at our in-app behavioral analytics. So this is what are people doing in the app, and then we look at their purchasing patterns. And so just for some examples, this would be like opening the app, what hotels do you look at, what hotels are you booking, which cities, all of that kind of information, how much money are you spending, are you coming back? And then we take that and we start to segment it. And something for this crowd that I thought was interesting is that what we saw with our audience is that it's very similar to the donor pyramid, right? So at the bottom, we have people that are booking, maybe never, they're coming to the app, checking it out, they're never booking. Then we have the 1s and 2s, booking just once or twice. And they're the bottom of the pyramid.
Okay.
And then at the top of the pyramid, we have folks that are booking, let's say, 10 times a month. And these are like our whales. And so we saw this behavior, and we actually designed our loyalty program around that. And so we designed it so that we could actually try to move and incentivize people to move up through that pyramid. And more recently, what we've done is we've actually looked at that data again and worked with our data and strategy team and our consumer insights team to try to understand what is different about the people that are at the top versus the people, we now call them legends are the people at the top and lightweights are the people at the bottom.
Okay.
And our whole company, all of our goals, the way that we build product is built on generating more legends and getting people who are lightweights to become legends. And that's become really important to the whole way that we run the company.
How are you getting those, how are you kind of stewarding them almost into becoming that legend? Do you have kind of a customer path or a track you're trying to put them on?
So the big thing right now is our loyalty program. So we can get into this in another question, but the way it works is very, very simple. The more that you book with us, the better the deals get. The reason that I think it works very well is that it doubles down on the core value prop of what we do. People come to HotelTonight because they like to get really good deals on really great hotels. And what this does is it says, hey, the more that you book with us, the more that we're actually going to increase the discounts that you're getting on those hotels. It's pretty simple. It's kind of gamified. Yep. The more that you spend, you go up in levels, and most of those levels coincide with either a discount or cash back. So that's the major way, and then we're trying to figure out, based on the data that we're seeing, like what is different about these folks so we could actually fundamentally change the way the product works for different cohorts of people.
Cool. That's great. Paul, do you have anything you want to add? You want me to question?
Just to build on Drew's point there, we're seeing a lot of, I mean, if you're paying attention to loyalty news, I guess, retail and, marketing space, you're seeing a lot of companies configure some of their programs. DSW, Kohl's, a lot of them have introduced pretty significant tiering, more aspirational tiering, because much to Drew's point, a lot of loyalty programs were traditionally structured to say, you do this, you get that. We're really doubling down sort of on the what we call below the line loyalty. Once I've got that program structure, how am I using the customer data underneath all that underpinning to make the program and the product even more compelling over time? So a lot of our programs revolve around, okay, much like an Amazon model, what type of product recommendations can we make based on what data is saying? We work a lot in a scheme called collaborative filtering, right, where we're taking a look at a collaboration of individuals and then starting to filter what is being presented to individuals based on what it looks like they might be interested in. And the machine learning keeps getting smarter over time to develop, okay, now we know what marketing communications seem to work for a certain set of people, so it starts to refine along that path. So if the loyalty program is kind of the visible, the published aspect, it's really that under the line element that we're seeing as kind of where loyalty programs are really starting to move.
Mm-hmm. How, when you guys were initially starting to think about some of these programs that you talked about already, or maybe some other ones that you can draw examples from, but how do you start to define okay, this is a really engaged customer, or this is someone who I think could become a whale or whatever, versus the people that we don't maybe want to spend as many cycles on? Where do we draw that line? Because I think that's really hard, especially in the alumni world. It's well, they're all alums. They all are part of this community in a way. I don't want to drop them off, but at the same time, I don't want to spend cycles on something that's not going to get me anywhere. So how are you guys thinking about where you're drawing those lines?
I'll kick it off. I think it's starting with data that's available to you, right? We always say, in our world, customers are very bad predictors of their own behavior. So starting to understand what customer data you do have available, what's that leading you towards, and then really trying to use that to then present yourself to the given customer, right? The whole understand, then be understood. In the marketing space, a lot of the inclination is to jump to, I've got a great product, I'm just putting it out there before actually looking at what the data is telling you. Mm-hmm. So, I think it all has to start with how well do you really understand your core audience, mm-hmm. and how are you making that emotional connection to them? I mean, much like in your space, in a retail setting, it's taking a brand that offers hard benefits or a loyalty program that offers hard, points and structure, and then I'm trying to take you over time to more of an emotional connection to the brand, which starts to, it snowballs in terms of mm-hmm. customer loyalty and feedback, and then ultimately, and I'm sure this is big within your space as well, customer referral. Mm-hmm. I'm going to bring my friends into this. So now it's not the brand or the institution selling, it's your friends, your peers selling.
Yeah, creating those influencers that Anne, this morning, the marketing panel was talking a little bit about creating influencers in the market. Probably some of your most loyal customers are your influencers who are helping to get someone to get a Rent the Runway subscription.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Every business is going to have different indicators of engagement, and so you learn these early on. What are the trends of the people that are placing the most rentals or joining a subscription, and then how do you lean into that? Mm-hmm. And for Rent the Runway, I think one of those huge unlocks for us was actually really early on. We debated back and forth on whether we should allow women to post reviews on our website. At the time, this was 9 years ago, that was not really something that people did. And we gave it a shot, and what we discovered was that women actually love to talk about themselves. We like to say, you know, whether we liked something, what we wore it to, how it made us feel. Yep. And what was crazy was that women were giving like super personal information. Their bust size, their weight, things, their age, things that typically you wouldn't share, and they were sharing it with the public. And what we also noticed was that the people that were reviewing the most were obviously the people that were renting the most, and they were becoming these influencers for this community within Rent the Runway. And I feel like one space where we're really focused right now is how do we take that community because we have over 300,000 customer reviews now that are live on the site. How do we take that community that we've created on Rent the Runway and extend that to each of their own social networks so that they're basically becoming brand advocates for us. And one of the most successful things that we've done is launch a referral program, to your point.
Yeah, I'd say the one thing to add there is the importance of, yes, of course, looking at the data, but also talking to these folks. Because if you were to just look at the data that we have that predicts who's going to become one of these legends, it would look like, based on the cities that they're booking, the days that they're booking midweek, the credit cards they're using, you'd say, oh, these are all business bookers. That makes sense. That's why they're booking so frequently. They're traveling a lot for business. But when we actually polled them and talked to them, they told us that about 40% of their bookings were for business and the rest were for leisure. And so if we just went off our gut instinct and dove right into that, we would be building product that isn't great for them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and I think also there's this idea about the referral program and creating that network. We actually just launched our own EverTrue customer community, which is plugged on some slides up here at various points in time. But it's really also trying to connect those people together, I'm sure, and making sure, like, kind of spurring that loyalty, like almost getting them use of gamification is an element of it, but like how do you get them to be the bigger influencer, the bigger, you know, I'm more loyal than this person. I don't know if you guys think about, like, once you've kind of hooked them there, how do you also keep that momentum going too?
Well, there's this idea of FOMO, right?
Yes.
So if you feel like your friends are participating in something that you're not, then you want to get on board. You want to feel like you're included. And we've actually seen, like, some of the places where our subscription has taken off the most is in the workplace, because somebody wears unlimited to work every day, and their coworkers are constantly jealous of their ever-rotating
They get it delivered to
wardrobe.
their office, which happens at EverTrue all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And so then all the coworkers end up joining.
Yeah.
So we've created these little, like, Rent the Runway communities in the office, but it's something that I've been thinking about as it relates to what all of you do every day, which is, how do you really leverage those social networks to make someone feel like, oh, well, if all of my friends have donated this year, like, I probably should too.
Yeah, that's great. Question, maybe I'll have to start with you, Paul, is like, how have you seen the customer journey evolve over the past couple of years? And I think also keeping in mind how social has changed and technology has been moving so quickly. You know, if you can compare a year versus 3 years versus 10 years ago, like, what are you seeing in that kind of evolution?
Yeah, so I started off with, out of school with Digitas. It wasn't even called Digitas back then, but a long time ago, and we were pretty strict about our purchase funnel and exactly what it looked like, and it, awareness, consideration, purchase. In our world, pretty much, I would say that funnel is dead, and not dead in the sense that it just doesn't exist anymore. It's just completely morphed into, and technology is a blessing and a curse in that regard, right? So many businesses have completely changed the way that they're relating to their customers, because customers have access to information. You've got access to options, access to deals. What we're talking about right here, if you look at the logos that, the clients that we're working with, they're all competing for a share of your mind, a share of your wallet, a share of your time. And with time being one of the biggest, commodities nowadays for the average individual, that model, the funnel itself in our world is very much, kind of a thing of the past, which is why relying on customer data to start to say, well, what are we seeing? What are the behaviors that we're watching over time? And I guess having a sense of humility and being humble about your business to say, or your approach to say, you know what, like, it's the customer that's leading this journey, and it's our job to stay in front of them and anticipate needs and move along with them. So, all these pieces that we're talking about, I would think all of our businesses have been evolutions, and part of that requires listening to, what our clients and their customers are saying and starting to morph in that direction, and realize that, the modern customer, the modern audience that you're talking to, all of your customers, if you will, are being bombarded by all the other brands out there as well. So standing out within that space requires an extra level of attention to data and then the analytics to say what's working, what isn't.
What about, tell me a little bit more, I guess, dive into the referral programs again. I'm trying to also think about how we could spin this in an alumni world. And the panel earlier was talking about kind of influencers. It could be that. How do I start to define who those people are? I know we talked about the data as well, and you talked about interviewing them. Are there certain traits or qualities that we should be looking for? And think about this, I guess, in a little bit of your own alumni light, that folks here, could go back on Monday and say, okay, if I was to start my own alumni loyalty program-ish, or there's something around there, is there something that I could do right off the bat that would make a difference? Maybe a tough question.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one thing that jumped to mind when you're specifically talking about referrals is in working on referral programs, what I've seen is that your best customers are the people who refer your future best customers. And if you kind of look at a segmentation as to who's bringing in the best people, it is your already best people. And so that's something that you'd likely want to double down on and think about structuring your incentives in terms of how referrals work so that those people are getting the highest incentives as well.
Yeah. With both of the programs that you guys are kind of working on now, or maybe Paul and some of your other ones, how many ideas were thrown off the table? Or how many things did you try that failed that you had to reinvent to kind of get to where you are now? Do you still feel like there's more work to go, or there's another level to this that you are going to dive into? Maybe some stuff you're working on currently.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We did basically as a product manager, all you do is just do tests all the time to figure out what works. And so we did a lot of messaging with referral to figure out what would get somebody to share Rent the Runway with their friends at the highest rate. And so we started with the very basic messaging that you see everywhere, which is give 30, get 30. And then we did the simplest test. We just got rid of the give 30. We just said get 30. And suddenly the share rates took off. Because at the end of the day, people want what's best for them. And yes, there's good people in the world, and there's altruistic people, and none of you would be able to do your jobs without those people, but people are also motivated by self-gain. And so it's interesting as you think about, I would say I am someone who is that person in the alumni community who is convincing friends to get on board with the donations every year. And I've never been given an incentive to do so. But if I was, I think, at least with my high school, the most powerful ones have been, if X number of people contribute, then this person will give this much more.
Yep.
But it still isn't quite there because ultimately what's in it for that? What's in it for the people that are donating? So trying to figure out some way to incentivize that leader in a friend group or a community is probably what would get the highest rates, more than making it about doing good for the school.
Okay, that's good advice.
Yeah, I'd say that we learned two things that stand out. One is that status and identity matter. And so when we originally launched our first version of our loyalty program, we just had 3 levels. It was 1, 2, 3, bronze, silver, gold type thing. And we recently, in the last year, we changed it so it's actually an infinite amount of levels. So if you keep staying with us, you can go from 1 to 1,000, let's say. And this has resonated so much more with people. We see people tweeting out their levels when they achieve a new level, and it's a consistent game. And so being able to have folks always have something to strive for and always have something that they can kind of promote and be proud of, that I've achieved this new accomplishment, and then have it be something that's deeply connected with what you're doing, I think is something that's really important. And then the next piece would be, as I mentioned before, we originally designed our program to drive people from nothing to 3 bookings. What we found was once they've made 3 bookings, maybe there's something with donations that's similar. Once you've made a certain amount of donations, you kind of think about it differently. What we saw was that people went from thinking oh, this is last minute, I use this when I have an emergency, to this is a tool that I can use to have optionality when I travel. And that was something that mattered a lot. And so we were like, hey, let's drive people to 3, and then beyond that, it'll be incredible. And what we saw in the results is that the loyalty program it's really hard to get people to go from 0 to 3. And we were able to move that a little bit. But what the loyalty program does incredibly well is it gets the whales to be more whale-like and to stick around and to do more bookings and to accelerate their velocity and to bring more people into the program and like get a lot more share of wallet, I'd say. And so that was a really interesting insight. It wasn't exactly what we were going for, but that's why we're doubling down more on the top side of the funnel.
Let's stick with that theme for 1 second, and this goes for all of you. What's something, when you're in that 0 to 3, or whatever the Runway equivalent is, or the Starbucks or the Arby's or whatever, how do you get those people, like how do you hook them in that 0 to 3? Because that's a lot of people here are probably struggling with that. You know, we think about our massive sea of non-donors or our lapsed donors, you can get super overwhelmed, and it's just like, there's so many of them, I'm just gonna send the same email I sent yesterday, you know? And so, how do we break that habit in there for them? Or are there certain things we can watch for in that particular time nugget that would be a piece of advice that we could take home?
Well, I think kind of the theme you just heard too is have a lot of hooks. Try a bunch of different things out of the gate. It's human psychology at the end of the day. You know, with whether it's the levels, you know, the tiers within programs. I mean, tiers are as much carrot as they are stick. You know, especially with an alumni setting. I just had a recent reach out from one of my friends, you know, saying, hey, you know, really want you to, you know, be part of this campaign. It coming from a friend was both compelling to me and also kind of, oh, well, I don't want to look like the deadbeat here. I got to give something, right? So I think it's trying a lot of different things and then refining over time. I mean, some of our clients work with massive scales of data that really give us sort of endless options to say, okay, we're going to try, you know, this permutation of a product recommendation and offer channel. You know, is it going to be text? Is it going to be email? What's it going to be? And then let the data tell us. But obviously, when you're working with an alumni communities, you're dealing with a slightly smaller data set. You still can start with a wide range of hooks, if you will, angles that work. For me, it's always personal connections. That's what school was to me. It was time of personal connections, and that's what gets me to go back and re-engage. It's the people. So thinking about different angles that you might be able to employ on that side could help.
That's great.
And related to the kind of self-gain thing that I mentioned before, even outside of like a monetary incentive, I think that, at least from my own experience, what's made me want to donate the most back to my school is feeling like I have an input in what the future of the school looks like. And so, especially for my high school, which is way smaller, there was no business program available. That's the field that I went into. I would be much more likely to contribute in a meaningful way if I felt like I was creating a future for the school that I would want to send my kids to. And so I think about that as, you know, if you take some of those whales, as you're saying, and give them those opportunities to create those sort of programs, maybe with the hook that they have to get X number of people on board to contribute to it, that could be an interesting angle as well.
Any other thoughts on that? Has anyone have a customer loyalty, or not a customer, an alumni loyalty program or different kind of levels that you're thinking about? I know a lot of schools have kind of different giving levels, but is there something that's more around engagement or programming or events? Anyone have anything that they want to share? No? It was an opportunity. Okay, we make something. What about questions for the group? We just have another minute or so here. Who's got a question for this awesome team? Yeah. So the question was kind of if loss of getting something versus loss aversion. Okay. Loss aversion versus opportunity for gain. Yeah.
Yeah, it's everything. This is definitely why you lose your airline points after a year if you don't use them. Loss aversion is huge. On the flip side, what we see is that the people that refer the most, when you ask them why, it's very altruistic. And so I think it's a mixed bag. But you want to use every tactic you can at your disposal.
And the data is important too.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a mixture. You know, we had to make the choice of whether to charge a cancellation fee if someone wanted to leave a subscription. And ultimately, we decided not to charge that cancellation fee because we wanted women to feel like they could come and go as they please according to, you know, the time of year, or whether, you know, if they had a baby, they might not want to rent anymore, and then they're going to be ready to join back at the workforce and come back. And so we wanted to give them flexibility in order to make them more loyal customers who trusted us. But then, of course, like there's other things where, you know, if you cancel a rental, we're going to charge you a fee to try to convince you not to cancel that rental. So I think it is really case by case.
Well, we're out of time, but thank you to this awesome panel. This was super interesting. I hope you guys learned something. And next up, Brent's up next. Cool.